Welcome back to my channel, Ragamuffins. My name is Raggyrog, and today I want to bring you my 5 choices for abilities in Pokémon that are completely useless. Now, this is not going to be necessarily in a general sense, but it might be specific to a certain Pokémon. We all know that there are abilities in Pokemon, and some of those abilities are just innately useful. There are abilities like Static, which means that if made physical contact with this Pokemon, they may get paralyzed, and that's just useful. It's just good to have that on hand. It's like a bonus feature. Then there's abilities like Intimidate, where just by showing up, you lower your opponent's attack stat. That's just innately useful. There's not always going to be a use for that, but usually you're going to find plenty of times. But there are 5 situations at least that I know of where a Pokemon-specific ability is totally useless, and it makes me wonder why they even implemented it. Some of these you may already be aware of, but without further ado, we're just going to get into it anyway. So, number 1. The first Pokemon on this list and their ability is going to be Archeops and Archon, his pre-evolved form. And you probably already know what I'm going to say, but his ability is Defeatist. Defeatist is arguably literally the worst ability in the game. Archeops and Archon are the only Pokemon that can have this ability, and what it does is when that Pokemon's HP is reduced to 50% or lower, it halves their attack and special attack stat, which is so pointless. Keep in mind that Archon is actually released alongside Tortuga. They are the 2 fossil Pokemon released in Black and White. And Tortuga, who evolves into Caracosta, has the abilities Solid Rock and Sturdy. Solid Rock makes it so that super effective hits do not actually cause as much damage as usual, and Sturdy just prevents a Pokemon from being knocked out from full health in a single hit. I don't need to explain to you why these abilities are super useful. And then you put him next to Archon and Archeops, whose ability is to literally get weaker as they get weaker. It's a snowball effect of weakening. Now, the same can be said of a few of the abilities on this list, where even useless abilities like Defeatist can have their niche. There are ways to implement that ability so that they actually cause a detriment to your opponent, such as ability swapping and other moves like that. However, in a general sense, if I wanted to play through the main game of any Pokemon game and carry Archeops with me, a Pokemon who is just strategically going to get weaker as he gets weakened, I'm not going to have a fun time with that. Especially, as I mentioned before, since he was released alongside Caracosta, who is objectively more useful. I am not going to pick that bird, I'm sorry. So there you go. Defeatist on Archeops, possibly the worst ability combo in the entire game. The next on this list, very similar to Archeops, we have Golisopod, and his ability is Emergency Exit. Similar to Archeops, he doesn't have an alternative ability. He doesn't have a hidden ability that is different or anything like that. An Emergency Exit, again, it can be useful in certain situations, especially in the competitive realm. There may be actual really good applications for this, but in a general sense, what Emergency Exit does is, when the Pokemon's health is reduced to 50% or lower, they swap out automatically with another Pokemon in your party, whether you like it or not. Obviously, this doesn't work if he is the only remaining Pokemon in your party, but there are better abilities on just stronger, better Pokemon. And that it's a shame, because to me, Golisopod is one of the coolest looking Pokemon in the entire game. Hands down. I'm not going to say he is the coolest, but he's definitely top 10 at least. I really, really like the design of Golisopod. And when playing through Sun and Moon for the first time, I was heartbroken to find that his ability made him more of a chore to carry around and use than not. So it's like, man, the coolest Pokemon I've ever seen possibly, and I just can't bring myself to use him because anytime he's lowered to 50% health or not, or lower, it just makes me want to tear my hair out because the battles already take so long in that game. So like I said, in the competitive realm, there are useful applications for this. There are a lot of reasons why you might want your Pokemon to swap out frequently. But in a general sense, if I wanted to play through the game with Golisopod, this is just too much work. There's too much to think about. I just want to steamroll my opponent and tank hits. So there you go. The third one on this list, I feel like everyone probably knows about, is going to be Slacking. And his signature ability, this is his signature ability, similar to Emergency Exit and Defeatist, is Truant. And what Truant does makes it so that every second turn, Slacking just loafs around, meaning he does literally nothing. You have the option to switch him out, but otherwise it doesn't matter what command you give him, he's just going to loaf around and do nothing. You can tell him to use Body Slam, he's not going to do that, he's going to loaf around. And it's like I said, the same can be said of a lot of these abilities. There are some niche practical applications that make this turn the tide of the battle in your favor. But typically, if I wanted to play through the game using Slacking, I'm not going to, because it's too much of a pain to have to count on him skipping every second turn. I understand why this ability is here, is because Slacking has one of the highest attack stats in the entire game to this day. His stats are astronomical. So it only makes sense that they would try to nerf him or balance him, if you will, by giving him an ability that just leaves him wide open. The problem is that, especially in the competitive realm, is when you can predict what your opponent's move is going to be, it makes winning a lot easier. And when I can predict that every second turn my opponent is definitely not going to hurt me, it gives me so many options to save my Protect or Detect or whatever for the following turn, and I can spend this turn swapping out into something that I know is not going to get cleaned up in a single hit. It puts too much power in the opponent's hands. So while Truant might have a niche somewhere, it is not good enough to be considered competitive or viable in any setting. Not really. The fourth one on this list, and this one is actually really, really specific, is Pyroar. Pyroar can have the ability Moxie, and I know if to those less educated on the matter, you're going to get angry because Moxie's a really good ability, and it is. Every time you knock out an opponent using Moxie, it raises your attack stat by 1 stage, and this is how a lot of really powerful, well-known Pokemon are able to pull off massive sweeps, the likes of Salamence or Mega Gyarados. I'm pretty sure he gets Moxie. The point is that these Pokemon get Moxie and they just steamroll. It's a sweeping strategy ability, which is hardly ever a bad thing, except when you look at the stats. Pyroar's attack stat is only 68, but his special attack stat is 109. That's quite a jump. The point I'm getting at here is that if you are building a Pyroar competitively and you put investment in its physical attack, then you are putting a lot of effort into something that's probably not going to get the job done anyway, especially in the modern day of Pokemon, because there are so many options that can tank hits now. So even if you've put full investment into Pyroar's physical attack, he's probably not going to be able to take a lot of enemies out in a single hit. If you're not putting your effort into his special attack, you are wasting your time. Keep in mind also that Pyroar actually also has 2 other abilities that can be chosen from, and those are Unnerve and those are Rivalry. So Rivalry makes it so that enemies of the same gender take bigger hits from Pyroar, and Unnerve prevents the opponent from eating berries. These have clear, obvious applications that can be used, even by Pyroar. Moxie is an ability that sounds good, but on a Pokemon who is clearly geared towards special attack, it doesn't make sense. Lastly, on this list, and this one is kind of infamous, but Ditto. Ditto can have one of 2 abilities, and those abilities are Limber and Imposture. The ability on Ditto that is absolutely useless is Limber. And let me explain. What Limber does is it prevents a Pokemon from getting paralyzed, which typically is really, really useful. Who doesn't want a free get-out-of-jail card against paralysis? Because paralysis not only stops you from taking turns randomly, but it also halves your speed stat. Except, in the case of Ditto, Ditto's only move that it can learn is Transform, which copies everything about the opponent. The only thing that doesn't get changed is the remaining health. So if your Ditto takes a hit before it transforms, the percentage of remaining health will stay the same. but its max hit points will alter to stay the same as its opponent's. So that's how it works. That means that even his ability will change by the time he transforms. So it doesn't matter if he has Limber or not. If you're turning into a Pokemon that has Intimidate, well, there you go. Ditto now has Intimidate. The point is that I understand that Limber is here so that, you know, if you do want to use Ditto, you have the opportunity to maintain your speed and to also not get paralyzed on that first turn. But Ditto's second ability is Imposter, and Imposter completely negates the need for Limber, because what Imposter does is it makes him use his move, Transform, at the start of his first turn. So you call out Ditto, and without needing to tell him to use Transform, he will just use Transform. There is no scenario, literally none, where having Limber is more useful than this. Being able to call out Ditto and have him transform immediately saves you an entire turn of setting up, which, if you are going to use a Ditto competitively, I don't think I need to explain to you, but that really sets you up for failure. If you know that your opponent is going to use Transform on their first turn, that gives you free reign to do whatever you want. Alternatively, if they just transform automatically, it saves you a turn and you can just start doing what you want to do. My point here is that there is literally no reason to have Limber on your Ditto, and I get it. Imposter is a hidden ability. It is not necessarily easy to get one with Imposter, but I would argue that if you can't get one with Imposter, then you should probably not waste your time using a Limber Ditto in the competitive realm. I'm not going to tell you how to play your game, but consider it advice, okay? And there you have it. These have been 5 Pokemon with abilities that are just terrible. Let me know down in the comments which ones you think are terrible, and I might make a video about that in the future, because I know that there's actually no shortage to these horrible Pokemon ability combinations throughout the entire series. If you enjoyed the video today, then make sure to give it a like and subscribe, hit the bell and share it with your friends, and do all that good stuff for me, please. In any case, my name is Raggy Rog. Thank you so much for watching the video today, Ragamuffins. I will see you in the next one.